Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much to those who watched my first introduction video and they get to know the new booktuber tag. I thought today it would be really fun to go over my favorite books from each month this year so far. As you can see behind me, I've kind of got some things torn up as I have been going over all my books that I have read so far this year. In January, I discovered the Murderbot Diaries, and my favorite book from that month was All Systems Red. I did read that on my Kindle as well as with an audiobook that I had checked out from the library. The Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells is kind of everything that you want from a science fiction story. We follow Murderbot, who is a robot that has hacked his own system and released themselves from the controls that the big corporation that owns him is usually in charge of. So throughout the stories, Murderbot is grappling with making human-like decisions on his own without a program that controls him. He is sarcastic. He is kind of the sometimes unwilling hero in certain situations. He really deeply cares about the humans that he's in charge of. And so sometimes he just plows into situations that he feels like is probably a bad idea. But it's really fun to watch not only the development of the character, but the kind of situations that he gets himself into, the ways that he copes with being this sort of murder bot. And I definitely highly recommend the entire series. But All Systems Red was my favorite book from January. In February, I read The Wager by David Grann. David Grann also wrote Killers of the Flower Moon. I do happen to live in Osage County, so I read that book just as soon as it came out. And since then, I have been picking up a few more of David Grann's books. The Wager didn't come out very long before February, I don't think. I don't actually have the book with me because it is currently loaned out. But basically what The Wager is about a ship called The Wager. And that ship, as well as some others, set out to sail down and around Cape Horn, which is a very, very dangerous sea route to travel. It is still very, very dangerous today. And The Wager is shipwrecked. What I thought was really so great about this book is that David Grann does a really great job, at least in the books that I have read of his, of not only presenting the history, and he's done his research very, very well, but he develops the characters in the story. So it's not as dry as just a regular plain old history book. So we see the crew on The Wager as well as after they've shipwrecked and all of the things that happened after that up until the 2, sometimes 3 years that it took for these sailors to make it back home. There is humor. I love how when they are crashed on Wager Island, that there's a dispute between the Navy captain and the Marine captain about who is now in charge, because technically they were on a sea voyage, but now they're on land. But the hardships that they endured on this island, which has really no food and no fresh water, was just terrifying and heart-wrenching. And I think David Grann did a really, really good job of bringing this crew and their struggles to life. So that was my favorite book of February. In March, my favorite book was actually a big surprise, and that was Sign Here by Claudia Lux. Um, the reason why this book was such a surprise is because I'm not sure that I've ever had a book favorite come from Book of the Month Club. There's been a lot of books that I've really liked from Book of the Month. Um, but this one just seemed kind of very lighthearted when I read the explanation. I mean, this literally says a darkly humorous, surprisingly poignant, and utterly gripping debut novel about a guy who works in hell, literally, and is on the cusp of a big promotion if only he can get one more member of the wealthy Harrison family to sell their soul. So, in this book, we follow Peyote, who is a bureaucrat in hell, and it is his job to collect souls, make deals, that sort of thing. He can travel between hell and earth, and we basically follow him and his merry band of demons as they are doing their job. And then we also follow the Harrison family. Specifically, we follow the teenage daughter, and her name has just completely left my head. Mickey. Um, so Mickey is a teenage girl, and during this story, we are following Mickey's sort of trials and tribulations as a teenage girl, and surprisingly well written character. She reminded me of a teenager with all of the insecurities and all of the problems that go with being a teenage girl, and not only that, but being a teenage girl with a very beautiful friend. The Harrison family goes to their vacation home. We find out that there had been a death there previously, but we go back and forth between the demons in hell trying to get souls and the Harrison family dealing with all of the issues that they're currently dealing with, marriage issues, teenage issues, just all sorts of things. I expected this to be kind of funny. I actually picked this up as a palate cleanser from The Wager because The Wager was quite heavy and serious, so I thought that this would just be kind of something lighthearted to move between heavier books. And what this turned out to be was an amazingly beautiful study in what it really means to be human. Not something that you would expect from a book about demons, but if you have seen this, I highly recommend it. It is, I would say, it's part lit fic, part thriller, part philosophy, and all kind of wrapped up in a lighthearted package that has a whole lot of humor. So definitely a big surprise there for me. All right, March, April, we move back to Murderbot Diaries with System Collapse. I've really already talked a lot about this when I talked about January. So in System Collapse, we are just continuing to follow Murderbot. And while I liked all of the books, I think that All Systems Red and System Collapse were my favorites of the 7. And I do believe this is getting turned into a TV show. So I'm definitely planning on watching it, and I hope it really lives up to the books. Okay, May, Tress of the Emerald Sea. You've probably seen this all over Instagram, TikTok, everywhere. This is the latest from Brandon Sanderson. It is a standalone. It is my first Brandon Sanderson book that I have read. So I thought before I dove in and made the big commitment for any of his extremely large series, I would give Tress a try and see if I liked his writing style. And You know, while the writing style, I think of this as a little simple, it's kind of direct and to the point. I thought it was highly creative. I really liked the characters. I enjoyed the way that the plot line went. I think, um, pirates. It, I am always down for a book about pirates. So, in the book, we have Tress, and she falls in love with Charlie, and Charlie goes out to find himself, do what his father wants, and is captured. And what we have when in Tress, and I don't want to tell too much about it because you just need to read it and get into the story. We have a very unique world where the ocean is made of spores, and the spores do different things. And we have, again, kind of an unlikely hero in Tress, who is a young girl, but I love her quiet power. I love her willingness to give things a try. I love the fact that with Tress, we don't have someone who is fawning over a man. That kind of thing in literature just it tends to turn me off. I like strong women, and while she is in love and she's going on this grand adventure, because of love and to rescue Charlie, it's a very healthy relationship, I would say. Um, but yeah, and there's a rat that is a really great character. So if you love light-hearted fantasy, I wouldn't go so far as to say this is cozy fantasy. It's definitely not cozy, but I would say it's a light-hearted adventure. But if you're a fan of Brandon Sanderson or you like light-hearted adventure stories, fantasy stories, definitely pick this up. Well worth the read. All right. In June, I kind of had this was another unexpected favorite. It was not a 5-star read. So, again, these are not all 5-star reads. In fact, I think everything that I have talked about so far has been a 4-star read. And this is also a 4-star read. But a 4-star read to me is really, really good. A 5-star read is life changing. A 4-star read is really, really good. And a 3-star read is kind of like a guilty pleasure. I will continue to read them because they're good and I love them. They just aren't literary masterpieces or world changing. This is definitely not a literary masterpiece or world changing, but I thought this story was so unique. It was definitely my favorite read for the month, and that is Fiona Davis's The Spectacular. So this is just kind of a typical murder mystery story. We have a duo who is investigating a murder, but one thing that I thought was really, really unique about this story is this is not a police procedural, this is not a legal procedural. This is a Rockette and a psychiatrist. I think what made this book so unique was the backstage look that we get into Radio City Music Hall. And really what life was like for the Rockettes at the time. And for, a lot of the book, that's what we're getting. We're getting behind the scenes looks at Radio City Music Hall. We follow Marion Brooks. She is 19 years old, and just kind of on a whim, she auditions for the Rockettes, and she makes it. And along the way, she meets Peter, who she kind of gets set up on a blind date with, who is a psychiatrist at a mental hospital. And there is a mad bomber on the loose. I'm not going to get into the storyline again too much because I don't want to give away too much, and I'm not extraordinarily practiced at talking about books without giving things away yet. So let's just suffice it to say that one of the bombings happens at Radio City Music Hall, and it has a profound effect on Marion. It has a profound effect on Peter, and they go about trying to figure out who this mad bomber is because he is striking terror in people throughout New York City. if you like murder mysteries, kind of your traditional murder mystery, this is a very fun and unique spin on that. And if you're interested in Dance with the Rockettes at all, again, um, Fiona Davis did a great job of researching this. She did a great job of really painting Radio City into the story, and it's really its own character in the story. All right, the only 5-star read on this particular list for the first half of 2024, and I'm going into July because it's already August. But this book, 5-star read, absolutely astounding, worth every single amount of hype that it gets, and that is The Will of the Many by James Islington. I have not read his other series. In fact, I didn't even know it existed. I was influenced to buy this book watching TikTok. And this is dark academia. It is epic fantasy, and it contains every trope from those two genres that you could possibly think of. We have an orphan who used to be higher up in society and has fallen to the bottom of society. He is adopted by a senator and sent to the big school for rich people, where they teach people how to use will, which is their magic. The magic system is really, really unique. The will of the many really is a very apt description for what happens here. So people in lower tiers of society give their will to the tier above them, who gives it to the tier above them, who gives it to the tier above them. So the people at the very top are, as strong as 6, 8, 10, 12 people. They pull on the will of others, draining the will of those down at the bottom. So kind of brings new meaning to the words life really gets you down. Oh, big stretch, Edgar. But this has literally so many tropes. We have the chosen one, the hero, the teenage boy who is going to save the world, and an unlikely hero climbs the ladder ridiculously quickly, strong, adept at magic. Every trope that you can imagine. However, what makes this book so great is that it has all those elements that we love and that draw us to dark academia and draw us to epic fantasy, but they're presented in such a unique and fresh way that it makes it all new. Just trust me on that. Absolutely stunning. The writing is beautiful, the language is beautiful. I just kept a very steady pace throughout. There's not really huge ups and huge downs. It's kind of steady action and interest throughout. And then the ending of this book. I can't stop thinking about it. The next book needs to come out immediately. I usually don't like to start big epic fantasy series before all of the books are released, and this is why. It's the same reason why I ended up, stopping watching like Walking Dead until all of the seasons were out, because, we end a season where, oh my gosh, is Glenn dead or not? And that's like all you can think about for the next few months. All I will be able to think about for the next few months until book 2 comes out is the ending of this book. Such a cliffhanger. Just run, go buy this. I've already started rereading the book because I will probably just slowly keep rereading this until the next book comes out. So I am fresh and I don't need to go back and reread, and I can start book 2 immediately. So there you have it. Those are my favorite books of 2024 so far. What are your favorite books of 2024 so far? And do you have any recommendations for me? Leave a comment down below. Please make sure to like and subscribe. And thank you so much for being here today.